beloved children's book author Roald Dahl is being censored by sensitivity readers for offensive language, including fat and ugly. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. British novelist Roald Dahl is widely regarded as one of the most influential children's authors, and also one of the weirdest. He's famous for books like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, James and the Giant Peach, Matilda, the BFG, The Witches, and more. More recently, Dahl and his books have become famous for a whole new reason: controversy. Seems like everything is controversial these days. But the Dahl controversy is a BFD. You know, a big friendly deal. Here's what's going on. Many of Dahl's books have been adapted into movies. Some, unfortunately, more than once. His books have sold hundreds of millions of copies, and some of the movie adaptations are still cult classics, or even memes. Even decades after his death, Dahl's works continue to be popular, and where there's popularity, there's money. Which is why Netflix acquired the Roald Dahl story company back in 2021. This means Netflix has the rights to both the books as well as various adaptations. But it has to tread carefully. And no, it's not just terrible live-action adaptations that they have to worry about. Back in 2020, Warner Brothers released a modern adaptation of The Witches, starring Anne Hathaway, which audiences and critics agreed was the worst thing to happen to anyone in 2020. Now in the books, witches are given away by claws that they can hide with gloves. The movie took creative liberties by giving Hathaway's character only 3 fingers on each hand. But this drew public outrage. Some said the movie depicted people with disabilities as scary monsters rather than celebrating differences. This sparked the hashtag #NotAWitch, which was also a popular hashtag in Salem during the late 1600s. Under pressure, both Hathaway and Warner Brothers apologized for the film, which is honestly ridiculous. Where were people when Darth Vader came out of his suit? Clearly he's problematic for not portraying burn victims in a positive light. What about the Penguin? People with big noses must be offended. So now, Netflix wants to avoid getting canceled by being more sensitive. Luckily for them, the Roald Dahl story company they acquired was already on it. In 2020, before Netflix acquired Dahl's books, the Roald Dahl Story Company began a review together with the publisher Puffin and Inclusive Minds. Inclusive Minds describes itself as a collective for people who are passionate about inclusion, diversity, equality, and accessibility in children's literature, and are committed to changing the face of children's books. How does it change the face of children's books? By removing language deemed offensive. According to Inclusive Minds co-founder Alexandra Strick, changes are done to ensure authentic representation by having fictional stories and characters match the lived experiences of any facet of diversity, such as race, religion, trauma, and sexuality. Thank goodness. Maybe this means we can finally get the story of the very gay, black, Muslim, traumatized, hungry caterpillar. But don't worry, a spokesperson for the Roald Dahl Story Company says the reviewers will maintain the storylines, characters, and the irreverence and sharp-edged spirit of the original text. Any changes made have been small and carefully considered. Yeah, a small number counting in the hundreds. This is like saying you're only making a small change to the meatloaf recipe by replacing the beef with spinach. It's just a small difference. Despite what book publishers may have you believe, though, these changes don't really capture the spirit of Dahl's storytelling. Instead, some say they're making Dahl's works go woke. I'll tell you how after the break. Welcome back. The Roald Dahl Story Company had sensitivity readers review Dahl's books and alter language to make them more inclusive. As a result, language related to weight, mental health, violence, gender, and race have been cut and rewritten. Does this mean we're going to see this book renamed Where the Native Indigenous Things because they're non-binary are? This rewriting has gotten a lot of criticism from people who are calling it censorship. Even British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak joined the criticism of the changes, saying that it's important to preserve and not airbrush works of literature. Literally hundreds of edits have been made, which you can see when you look at the 2001 and 2022 editions side by side. I won't go through all of them, but here are some. Let's first start with weight. In The Twits, there's a passage that reads, "You can have a wonky nose and a crooked mouth and a double chin and stick-out teeth." Now in context, this was talking about how a person who has good thoughts can't ever be ugly, even if they have physical imperfections, which would explain how Pete Davidson keeps getting all the hottest women in Hollywood. It ain't his looks, it's his personality. The 2022 edition took out the part about the double chin, presumably to not offend fat people, which is totally unfair. You're telling me it's not okay to portray a double chin as a flaw, but it's totally fine if it involves a wonky nose, a crooked mouth, or stick-out teeth? What about people with those features? Won't they be offended? Especially since you can't get rid of a crooked nose with diet and exercise. Is this book woke, or are book publishers in the pockets of big plastic surgery? Speaking of fat, the word fat has been completely removed from all of Dahl's works. And if any passage focused too much on just describing how fat a character was, it was removed entirely. Strangely, they removed calling Augustus Gloop fat, but didn't remove the part from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory where he fell into the chocolate river and came out looking like a Justin Trudeau Halloween costume. That's way more offensive. Weight wasn't the only target, though. Descriptions linked to mental health, such as crazy, idiot, mad, or maniac, were also taken out. To a limited degree, so were references to guns. They even took out the description of the character Mike Teavee from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. A boy wielding 18 toy pistols is way too dangerous. He might start playing cowboys and Indians, and that game is extra problematic. Then there were the gender-related changes. In Matilda, the horrible, child-abusing headmistress, Miss Trunchbull, made the students call her Sir. Now the publisher has replaced Sir with Miss. I guess they didn't want to misgender her. But any references to gendered terms like heroine were replaced with hero. There were other places where gendered nouns were replaced with gender-neutral ones, especially words that have men in them. It's not cloud men, it's cloud people. Apparently, Old Man Assumes Cloud's Gender is the updated version of that one Simpsons joke. In most cases, negative or old-fashioned portrayals of women were a no-go, no matter the context, because we can't just tell children that things were different back in the day when Roald Dahl was writing. For example, in a passage describing what a real witch would do, the new edition of The Witches describes a witch posing as a top scientist or running a business, instead of posing as a cashier or typing letters for a businessman. Hashtag boss witch, I guess. Also, any mention of black and white in these books, regardless of context, was taken out, even though they had nothing to do with race. Thank goodness these editors don't run a deli. I'd have no idea how to order this cookie from them. Again, this is only just a fraction of the hundreds of edits made by the sensitivity readers at Inclusive Minds. There are tons of other edits related to weight, gender, and race, plus more such as multicultural awareness. Sensitivity readers are basically projecting their political biases onto books and trying to accommodate the most sensitive of people. Their edits snowball to change the entire meaning behind texts. For example, one of the edits in The Witches completely misses the point about why someone would want to pull the hair of every lady. It went from don't assume the worst of someone and be a jerk to there's nothing wrong with wigs, which is ridiculous since there's a lot wrong with this wig. Cultural appropriation much? They've gone so woke they circled back around to being problematic. Meanwhile, in SEO Trot, the joke about the book's backwards title for tortoise was botched when publishers cut the sentence, "Tortoises are very backwards creatures." Publishers also completely added new meanings. One example being the Centipede song about Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker in James and the Giant Peach. The songs were intended to poke fun at the two ants' physical appearances, but their personalities became the focus instead. Looking at the 2022 version, though, the songs don't have much personality to look at. No looks or personality? They certainly know Pete Davidson. One of the weirdest changes appears in the book Matilda, in a description of the types of books Matilda reads at the library. Instead of reading Joseph Conrad and Rudyard Kipling, she now reads Jane Austen and John Steinbeck. Really? I'm guessing Conrad and Kipling were considered not okay because of colonialism. But Hemingway is fine? Also, these sensitivity readers manage to censor books within a censored book. It's like censorship inception. This example shows how this isn't just about taking out the word fat. These sensitivity readers have been given license to change Dahl's works however they see fit. Dahl is dead, so he can't give his 2 cents. And with so many edits being made, it's hard to tell if these books are even Dahl's anymore. So why go through all the trouble of making these changes? If Dahl's works are so problematic that it requires hundreds of edits, why bother continuing publication? The answer? Profit. The people making money off Dahl's works, like Puffin, the Roald Dahl Story Company, and Netflix, know that they have a lot to lose if they get rid of Dahl's works altogether. Netflix paid hundreds of millions of dollars for Dahl's intellectual property for a reason. But Dahl isn't the only one getting caught up in that net. Publishers of all sorts of works are resorting to hiring sensitivity readers, which are pretty much cheap freelance copy editors paid to cancel-proof books. But where does that end? Are they going to need to rename Brown Bear, What Do You See? To just Bear? Don't want to focus on the bear's color or be ableist against people who can't see. Some argue that sensitivity readers are vital for preventing publishers from spreading inaccurate and harmful stereotypes about marginalized peoples and cultures. They say these sensitivity readers are no different from subject matter experts. These readers are experts because of their lived experiences and intersectional identities, such as their ethnic background, sexuality, traumatic experience, disability, and interests. So they're in a unique position to improve artistic quality and make books more authentic and sensitive. And there's no book more authentic, sensitive, and brimming with artistic quality than The Very Gay, Black, Muslim, Traumatized, Hungry Caterpillar. This defeats the whole purpose of storytelling. The focus isn't supposed to be on sensitivity, but on telling a story, putting the reader inside someone else's head. It's an exercise in empathy. By removing anything that could remotely offend someone, you pretty much get rid of any meaningful storytelling. And anyway, there's always someone who'll get offended. Again, why is talking about double chins bad, but crooked mouth and stick-out teeth okay? And the use of sensitivity readers sets a lot of bad precedents. Suzanne Nozel is the chief executive of PEN America, an organization that supports literature and freedom of expression. She warns that selective editing to make literature conform to particular sensibilities could represent a dangerous new weapon against those who don't share their views. And, like the edge of the chocolate river in Willy Wonka's factory, it's a slippery slope. What if conservatives want to start imposing their values on classic children's books and make their own edits? Not sure progressives would enjoy their kids reading How the Grinch Stole Christmas, proving there is a war on Christmas, so no, I won't say Happy Holidays. This kind of rewriting could definitely come back to bite those who support it. It'll be especially bad for future sensitivity readers who look back at how backwards they were. Ultimately, these book revisions are the worst Roald Dahl remakes since these Roald Dahl remakes. Wow, this might be the first time you watch a horrible movie and can't even say the book was better. So what do you think of the changes to Dahl's works? Leave your comments below. And if you like this show, remember that we rely mainly on direct support from viewers like you. All it takes is as little as $1 per episode over on our crowdfunding website, Patreon. Visit patreon.com/AmericaUncovered for more. Click the link below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.